let's get started. We've got some great questions to go through tonight, Michelle, and feel free to interrupt anytime. And if you have need of further explanation, or is it fair enough?
Sure.
Yeah.
I guess it's just me and you. I can turn on the video. There we go. Let's see.
Yeah, looks like it. Here we go. We have.
Hi. Just us, huh?
Yeah.
Okay.
How come your picture looks different than what it was?
Does it? My hair's pulled back. Does that matter?
You are Michelle.
I'm Michelle. Yeah. Should I put my hair down? Will that make it look different? There we go.
That's fine. Do you have any questions about anything before we get started on our prepared questions for this evening?
Well, yeah, of course I have lots of questions, but I don't know I don't want to change like way off topic from what you have prepared.
No, go ahead. Let's take a few moments and cover those questions.
Sure. I'm trying to think what some of my best ones are, but the thing that I've been thinking about the most right now is I would love some advice about how to affiliate yourself with a brokerage.
Okay. Well, just to go out and interview with a few. They'll be contacting you. With your permission, the school gives out your contact information saying that you're a recent graduate. And so a lot of them will be calling you and say, hey, we have room and we need some help.
It sounds like, so you take the test and your license is automatically inactive. Is it best to have a brokerage before you take your test?
No, you can't have a broker before you take the test.
Well, or like have a broker where you're going to be signed. Cause I just listened to that.
Yeah, you can interview before you take the test if you want to. Most people don't. They wait till they take the test and then they start talking to brokers. Okay. Yeah, because you've got this big weight on you.
Yeah.
Well, that was my original
plan. Yeah, but then in the class it was saying that your license automatically goes inactive. So
it will only go inactive if you submit it to the division and tell them to go inactive. You haven't chosen a broker. See, you have to send it in. Just passing the test, you get a piece of paper from the test center saying you passed. And part of that is that you send that in with your application to become an agent. If you have not selected a broker on that application, they put you inactive. Okay. But you don't have to send it in for a number of days. I mean, it's not going to go bad for 2 or 3 weeks.
You have like 90 days, right? Isn't that
right? You have 90 days to submit it.
Yeah.
So then go out and start interviewing, talking to people, and find some place that you feel comfortable with, and that you feel like you're going to get the help you need to get going. Where do you live? I'm
in Mountain Green. Do you know where that is?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, it's a beautiful place.
It is beautiful. We really like it up here.
Yeah. One of my sons runs Snow Basin, so
yeah, it's a beautiful place.
But anyway, feel free to ask your questions. Let's go ahead and get started on our
I have a few from the general section. I'm in the Utah section now. I'm about 80% done, but I'll pull up the general section and look at some things that I was a little confused about. And actually, I might need to go grab a couple papers. But yeah, let's go ahead with what you have prepared.
Okay. Number 1. We're going to be talking about legal concepts involving land and personal property and real property. Okay, which of the following is included in the legal concept of land? Okay, the surface of the earth and all natural things permanently attached to the earth. Only the surface of the earth that is delineated by the boundaries. The surface of the earth except for lakes and streams, everything above, on, or below the surface of the earth. Which would you guess?
Well, real estate is the surface of the earth and then any structure attached to it. Land would be probably A. You're
right. Answer A is the correct answer. The surface of the earth and all natural things permanently attached to the earth, like a house. It has a foundation, is permanently attached. Very good.
So what's the difference there between land and real estate then?
Well, real estate includes land.
Right.
But it also includes anything else that's attached to the earth and all natural things as well.
So is there a difference then?
Well, you can take the definition of land and expand it and call it improved land. which could have, maybe it's just a lot at that point, but there are streets and utilities that have been put in underground and all that. Well, so when you buy the lot, you get the pipes and everything that's, and ownership of the street and whatnot, or at least the right to use the street and whatnot, sure. And then you build a house on it and it's, but real estate often includes some other rights besides just the land and the real estate. A lot of times real estate also includes other things like, your rights to lease payments. If the property, you bought the real estate and you got the lease with it. But you were right. Your instinct was right on the money. If you had to choose from any of these, A is the correct answer.
I guess I'm still a little confused though, because we do talk about surface rights, air rights, and underground rights. How is that different from the legal concept of land? Is that real estate only?
Well, those other rights can be individually delineated and then sold off. Like you may own the land, but you may not own the mineral rights. You may own the land, you may not own the water that's underneath the land. The water rights have been sold as well. So real estate is a bigger concept than real property. And it's a bigger concept than land. It's a larger concept.
So land and real property then are not synonymous.
Well,
Correct.
One is included in the other, but no, they're not synonymous.
Okay.
Okay, because I own the land. Okay, great. You own the land. What about the coal that's under the land or the natural gas that's under the land?
Right.
You own that? Well, no, I don't think so. I don't own the mineral rights. Well, real estate could include mineral rights, but the land is, maybe that's all you have is the dirt.
So does the deed make up what things you include then? Whether you're including mineral
Normally
rights?
what happens when you buy a property, you get a title insurance policy and it tells you what rights that you hoped you were getting, or maybe you knew you weren't getting.
Right.
But it defines all those for you. It says, it's subject to this, it's subject to that. You don't get this, you don't get that. Okay. It's in Utah, as far as water rights go, all the water in Utah is owned by the state, but it's deeded out to individuals for their individual use. So they own a water right. But if they don't use it, or if they abuse it or take more than they should and whatnot, then the state can come in and discipline them. And, if they don't use it or develop it, they could even lose their water rights, and everybody else is going to use them. So, but don't read too much into these questions. Just give them the answer they want and go to the next one. But maybe what you're concerned about will be answered in one of my other questions a little bit later too. Okay. But hold some of those thoughts, and as they develop, or if they're not answered again, let's hit them again. Let's go to number 2. So we talked about the legal concept of land, or a definition. Now, what is personal property? There's a big difference between land or real estate and personal property. And the main difference is that, well, let's read the question. Which of the following is personal property? A garage door, a portable car cover, kitchen chandelier, or custom installed mailbox?
Well, I guess we talked about intent, right? So I would say probably portable car cover.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
The intent is
you're hitting 100%.
Yeah.
Now, the big difference between this and the others is that the portable car cover is movable.
Right.
Personal property, one of the main delineators, that you can move it, like a car or a car cover. A tree is
technically though, a chandelier, if you install it with the intent to remove it, right?
Well, what your intent is
isn't that what I
you're
learned?
double thinking too deeply. Okay.
I know. I'm just
says
saying.
Kitchen chandelier. It didn't say that it was in a box in the garage. It just said kitchen chandelier. So you have to assume that it was installed. Custom installed mailbox. Well, hey, that's no question about that one. And then a garage door. Well, it's you mean the one they took apart and it's in the backyard? No, that you have to kind of assume. So of all these, the best answer, just like your instincts told you, the portable car cover. And it's movable. And that's one of the big differences between real estate and personal property. Yeah. Personal property is transferred with the deed. No, Yes, no, real estate's transferred with the deed, excuse me. Personal property is transferred with the bill of sale.
Right.
Number 3. 2 properties are divided by a small stream. The property line that runs down the middle of the stream is governed by literal, lot and block, riparian rights, or prior appropriation.
Riparian rights.
Riparian rights. Hey, look how well you're doing. This is fantastic. It's not lot and block. That's a subdivision, right? It's not prior appropriation. Okay. And it's not literal rights. So, riparian rights are, I had a situation just like this come up where we needed to meet a certain size on a lot to develop it for commercial property. And the surveyor came out and surveyed it, but he only went to the edge of the stream and it wasn't big enough. And so the city zoning said, oh no, Lehigh, we won't let you use this for what you want to use it. And I went back to the surveyor and says, you didn't do this correctly. If a water body is navigable for commercial purposes, and there's only 2 of those in Utah, one of them is Great Salt Lake and the other is a Utah Lake. That's it. So this particular stream or river was the Virgin River. And so since it's not navigable for commercial purposes, he actually owned to the middle of the stream. So I had him resurvey it. We went back in and it sailed right through planning and zoning. So there is some practical application of some of these things. Now, let's look at number 4, please. Because we have a whole bunch of these tonight. I think we'll have a time if we keep going. Okay, so number 4 is a buyer and a seller both sign an offer for a seller's house. Cool. That means it's under contract. 1 week before closing, the seller informs their agent they decided to take the curtains from the sitting room. What should you advise the seller? Well, to answer this correctly, you need to have some familiarity with the real estate purchase contract, which we affectionately call the REPC. But the real estate purchase contract says that window coverings are included. So if you know that, then we look at our answers. Advise the seller to replace the curtains with something comparable. Advise the seller that loosely connected items such as curtains are not included. Advise the seller that curtains are included with the purchase of the home, which is the correct answer. Advise the seller that until closing, any changes can be made. Now the REPC says prior to closing, no changes can be made. So that's exactly opposite. I didn't ask you, but would you have picked that one?
Probably, but I didn't know about what you said about the contract. Again,
yeah, you need to be real familiar with the contract.
Yeah,
I suggest you read it at least 3 times. Yeah. And that is all on the first page, and it has a boilerplate paragraph that says these following items are included in the sale if they're currently available in the house and if they're attached. And curtains and it mentions all kinds of window coverings, blinds, shutters, or anything that looks like that and whatnot. It's pretty all inclusive. Fine, huh? You can do this. You're doing really well. Let's look at number 5. A farmer's crops are an appurtenance, transferring with the property. Appurtenance means it goes with. A liability for any new owners. Okay. Implements that can be removed if the property sells, included in the riparian rights. Well, riparian rights have to do with water, and that's not a crop, so we can eliminate that one. Which one of the other 3 would you pick?
I would say implements.
Yeah, and you would be right. Implements are crops that are grown in the year of sale. So a cherry orchard, the trees are real property. The tree remains, and that's not a crop. But the cherries on the tree, if they haven't been harvested at the time of sale, the farmer has the right to come back and get those cherries.
That's what I was going to ask. Is so if they sell the property before, they have the right to come back and remove the properties.
That's correct. If it's not addressed in the contract. That's
why
if
it's not addressed.
Yeah, if it's not addressed. So if you're selling, who's the most logical buyer for a 20 or 30 acre cherry orchard?
Another farmer.
No, Irie Homes.
Oh, okay. Well, my husband and I actually purchased a sod farm last year where we purchased all of the sod. So
it was addressed in the contract.
But yes, it was addressed.
Had it not been addressed, since it was a commercial operation,
Yeah,
would have had the right to come back and dig that
and
sod up.
remove it. Okay.
Very good. Very good to hammer that home with the practical experience too. Let's go to number 6, please. A deed restriction. A deed restriction, A, remains with the deed and continues to subsequent owners. A deed restriction remains with the deed. B, expires when the person that created it dies. C, does not transfer when the property sells. And D, can only be on rental property. Well, we could probably safely eliminate D, don't you think?
I think so.
Yeah. So now you got a 1 out of 3 chance. What do you think?
It's A.
A is correct answer. Remains with the deed and continues. It's a deed restriction, and sometimes, they could be. You can only, if it's a vacant lot, maybe the guy above it that owns it, he bought it. He bought the one below and the one above. This happened a lot in the avenues and Salt Lake and the newer homes. And you would buy your lot, and then you'd buy the lot, in front of you that would block, so that your view wouldn't be blocked, or the whole valley, the ones way up. And, the lots weren't that expensive. So what's the big deal? But then years later, that lot's worth, $400,000. And you start to wonder, how much is that view really worth? So you could sell that lot with the restriction saying you can't build anything higher than this, above this particular data point, or, so. And that would be a deed restriction, and it would endure on all subsequent owners. So it's important.
And how do you remove a deed restriction?
You'd have to.
Is that through quit claim?
You could use another deed to remove it. Yeah.
Okay.
But you'd have to get the person that instituted it to do it. I mean, it's. Yeah. You'd have to use another deed, and and any deed would work. I mean, you probably would be a quit claim deed because it has a specific purpose. We use quit claim deeds quite a bit for correction deeds or minor changes and that kind of thing. Or let's look at number 7, please. Servient tenement. Servient kind of means like you're in service. Is the property which is granted an easement to cross a neighboring property. So you own an easement. That sounds like you're in control, not servient. Okay. B, the property owner which the easement crosses. C, the property owner if the property was inherited. D, the recipient of a life estate. Obviously, it's what?
The property over which an easement crosses.
That's correct. Yeah, because you're the one being disadvantaged. Therefore, we would consider that servient. Okay. You're doing so well. Okay, 8. If a neighborhood has a restrictive covenant against building additions to the homes, and one of the neighbors starts to build a new room addition onto their home, what can the other neighbors do? A, hold a hearing before the Association of Realtors. Okay. Have a local sheriff evict them. Evict them from their house? 3, C, sue in a private court to enforce the restriction. That kind of, or D, restrictive covenants are non-enforceable.
Oh, it's C.
Yeah, that's correct. And there's a lot of things that are going to be taken into consideration there. If this gentleman can show that, well, in court, he'd show up and he said, here's a plat map. And here I've circled 6 other houses in the subdivision, and they've all added additions. Then what do you think the judge is going to say?
Probably let it slide.
He's going to let it slide because
Yeah.
it wasn't enforced. So to remove one like this, which was put in on like a subdivision, what you'd have to do is have the majority of the to remove a restrictive covenant or change restrictive covenants. So sometimes they have an expiration date, like for 20 years out or something, and they expire. But if you wanted to remove it before that 20 years, you'd have to get the majority of the homeowners to vote to remove the restriction, and then you could take it off. Okay. That would be hard. Number 9, which lien would take first priority? Mortgage, mechanics lien, ad valorem taxes, the second mortgage.
Ad valorem taxes.
That's right. Under everything are the taxes. So I don't care if you have a first mortgage, a second mortgage, a mechanic's lien, it doesn't matter. The state is always first. Okay. So, and ad valorem, of course, means according to value. It's what the county assessor decided, and a mill levy is voted into place, and then we figure out what your taxes are based from that. Number 10, please. The right of a property owner to reclaim a property that's been foreclosed is known as right of redemption, A, B, clouded title, C, covenant of season, or D, deed holders due.
A.
A is correct. I don't know what deed holders due means. Covenant of season means you're fully possessed of title. It's yours. Clouded title is a title that has some problems with it. Maybe the deed was missigned or not signed by everybody, or had a wrong land description on it or wrong address. But that clouds the title. It's not squeaky clean. We're going to have to figure out how to correct that. And a right of redemption is the correct answer. Number 11, in most jurisdictions, the master plan is managed by the mayor and county superintendent, the board of equalization, the planning commission, or the zoning board of adjustment.
C, the planning commission.
That's correct. The board of adjustment is where you go to challenge your tax assessment, and you say, I'm paying too much in taxes. You've got my house assessed at 600,000 and it's not worth that. And here's my evidence. I have appraisals for other homes in the neighborhood that are like mine that sold for 450 and one that sold for 510. You've overassessed me at least $90,000, and they'll probably make an adjustment if you can prove it. But you're going to have appraisals, or a appraisal, in order to prove that. The board of equalization is where, I already mentioned that. Okay, and the mayor and the superintendent. No, it's the planning commission.
Are the questions on the test structured very similar to this?
They're very similar, yes.
Okay.
Yeah. And the neat thing is you only need a 70% to pass. You can miss. Yeah. Something tells me that is way below your normal testing scores. Number 12. Number 12. If a home was built as a multifamily residence, but later the zoning district was changed to allow single family residences only, the house is considered a what? It's already built. It was built. That's past tense. A buffer zone, non-conforming use, pre-existing assessment, a zoning relic.
I would like to say D, because that I really feel like is a nice answer, but I
A
think
zoning relic, yeah.
yeah, I like the
Does
way
that
they
mean
say
it has religious significance? I don't know.
but I think it's B.
It is B. It's non-conforming use at that point. And they'll probably let it go. I mean, it was built before the zoning law changed, right? At the time it was built, it was okay.
Conformed, yeah.
Yeah. And that's why you have all these different, committees and planning, commissioners and what you can go talk to kind of talk some sense to them. I did that on one of my properties. I bought a house in Sugar House. It was a duplex built in 52, and in 54 it was converted into a duplex. So it'd been sitting there as a duplex all these years, and we just had to go through a planning and zoning kind of thing because it wasn't zoned for a duplex, but there were a lot of duplexes in the area, and so they gave me a non-conforming use permit so I could sell it as a duplex.
Do they have to do that on resale? Give you a non-conforming use permit, or do they just
well,
let it
I have to, because I'm a licensed agent, and I'd have to sit down and explain to the guy, this is a non-conforming duplex, and since it hasn't been legalized, city could come back and tell you can't use it as a duplex.
Does the city ever give problems with non-conforming use? I mean, if it was built.
So I had a neighbor right next door to me, and she had her building converted into a triplex. And they would allow the duplex, but they wouldn't let her do the triplex.
Okay, that was a conversion, but if it was built according to zoning laws that were there at the time, did they ever give you a problem on resale? If it no longer follows zoning laws?
Well, they probably don't know, on resale. What triggers their knowledge is hey, you bought this 6 months ago and now you're applying for a permit to remodel this and that. We found out it was a duplex or a triplex. That's what happened to her. She went in and pulled a permit to add on to the garage or something. I forget what it was, but they said, you've got this converted into a triplex. We're not going to allow you to do that. And says, well,
No.
why not? Everyone else around here, no. And so
Often
they made her open it up so that it would work. Dan,
Often what they'll do is they'll grandfather you in because the zone changed after you were built there. But
Yeah.
it's only for you. And if you transfer the property to someone else, the grandfather clause doesn't transfer to the new owner.
So then what happens? Like if you are,
I would have had to sell my duplex as a single family house.
So if you're representing a buyer who's buying a property that's non-conforming use, you have to advise them that there could.
One of the buyer's responsibilities they take on themselves, according to the real estate purchase contract, is they have to perform their own due diligence. So if they have a question about the zoning, yeah, you might get in the middle of that and help them or go with them. I had a situation in Colorado where I first started, where one of the agents in the office sold a property that had had the garage converted into a hair salon, and they thought, oh great, we want to do a dog grooming here. And so they bought the home. They went down to the planning and zoning department and they said, yeah, that's fine. And they went down to get a permit and they wouldn't give them a permit. So the little gal that told them that it was okay made a mistake. And I says, well, we bought it because we want to use it for this. And in the past, it's been, you have to go before the commissioner board and you have to do this and that in order to get it approved. And they couldn't get it approved. So they were not happy campers. They sold the property and moved back to California. But lucky for him, he did take them into planning and zoning. And they couldn't really fault the agent. So you have to be really careful on that. I mean, I would.
At what point could they fault the agent though? Like
if he told them, oh, don't worry about it because it's fine. I'm sure you can do it. And I'll make some calls and figure out. And he never did, or he did, and someone gave him the wrong information. At least if they were with him and she told them, address them directly, he didn't even really talk to her. He was just there, and they said, we're contemplating buying this property and we want to know if we can do this with it. And they said, oh yeah, sure, absolutely. Yeah, so they were all happy. But when they went back to get their business permit, they said, this property's not zoned for this kind of business. So I don't know, check it twice, I guess.
The best course is just then to advise them to talk to the zoning commission or go into the city and talk with or what's the best course?
Well, they already owned it at that point. What they could have done, if everyone had been more on the ball and they had received proper truthful information or correct information, then they would have probably delayed a closing or made it subject to getting their business permit.
Got it.
And then if they didn't get it, they wouldn't buy it. And if they did get it, they could buy it or could not buy it, or could walk away. Dan, you had a comment?
When you're talking about agent law, if you give advice for something like that and say, yes, you can, and it turns out you can't, then yes, the agent could be liable for giving bad advice like that. So just make sure everything you tell your clients is verified, or send them to the right place to get the right advice.
Okay. And probably what would have happened is, they were so upset with the city, they wanted to move somewhere else. So if he had given the wrong advice, he would just, the broker would turn it on his heirs and emissions insurance, or probably the broker and the agent would just, pool some money together and buy the house from him. Okay. Would be another way to settle that. Okay. But they definitely, because the agent was, did his job and whatnot, he got, they listed it with him. So I was, he got a commission going in and got a commission when they left, but he did the right thing. And that was the most important thing there. Number 13, an area that separates two zoning districts where the two districts are incompatible, like a commercial use and single family is called a what? Buffer, brownfield, zoning division, or neutral corridor?
I think it's called a buffer field or buffer
You're right.
zone, but I'm
You're
not
right.
100% positive.
You're right. Yeah, it's a buffer zone because it kind of separates. Now, a great example of what was done poorly is in North Salt Lake, where you have single family residences and across the street are oil refineries. Way bad zoning and planning. Okay. There should have been like commercial warehouses across the street, and then maybe some apartment buildings, and then the single families. You know what I mean? So they would buffer each other. But that wasn't done. A property owner, number 14, a property owner is precluded by deed restriction from developing a 30-foot boat dock. The limitation prompts the owner to sell to another party. Okay. The new owner is free to build the dock since the next door neighbor built a similar dock 2 weeks later. Okay. B, takes the title subject to the same restriction. C, can build the dock with special permission from the zoning board, or D, may build since the restriction is extinguished by the sale.
They would
What
take.
kind of restriction is this? Is a deed restriction.
It's a deed restriction, so they take it with the same restriction. B.
Right. They're stuck with it. Right?
Yes.
See, they can't go to planning and zoning. It's not a zoning violation.
Right.
It's a deed restriction.
Deed.
So C doesn't work. And D, may build since the, no, deed restrictions aren't extinguished by a sale. You know, they ride with the deed. They were written in the deed that this is a restriction. So I'm transferring it to you with this restriction. Well, since I bought it, I don't have to abide by the restriction. No, I don't think so. Okay. And A is free to build the dock since somebody else did it. Well, maybe they didn't have a deed restriction. Okay. Okay. Fun. Okay. We have 15. The final measurement of a meets and bounds description will always terminate at point of origin, the first lot and the plat, the front of the property, the longest bound.
A.
Point of origin. Yeah. Every meets and bounds description has a POB. Do you know what a POB stands for? Point of beginning. Point of beginning.
Point of beginning, yeah.
Every meets and bounds description has a what? POB. And okay, so you start here, you go here, you go here, you go over here, and then you come back there. And they're supposed to close. They're supposed to meet. So a surveyor could survey it all out, and you know that it would come back to that point. Occasionally you find properties where the lot doesn't close, you know, and they were off a few degrees. So there's like a 6-inch gap between the point of beginning and that last dimension of the lot. And it's just an irregularity. You live with it. I mean, the fence is already put in place, or, maybe it's the front yard and there's not even a fence there anyway. You just, and for most of us probably wouldn't care, but if you're a surveyor or an engineer, you couldn't buy that house because it'd bother you all night. Wake up in the middle of the night. My lot doesn't close. Well, because they're real precise people, Okay, you have more questions?
No, not right, not with what we're talking about.
Okay. Well, no, that was my last question. So, we have 16. Oh yeah, sorry, Dan. Number 6. Did we do 16? No. Let's do 16. A rectangular property is 50 feet wide, touching the street, 100 feet deep, away from the street, 50 feet length. That is the 50 feet length that is adjacent to the street is called the setback. A. B. Assess line. Or C. Frontage. Or D. Meets.
The frontage.
The frontage. That's correct. Yeah. And sometimes you'll see a term frontage foot. Have you seen that?
Mm-mm.
In this case, what would the frontage foot be? 20
like how
feet.
many feet?
Yeah, it'd be 50
Wide
feet.
touching the street and 100, so 50 feet, yeah.
Yeah, it'd be 50 feet. Cool. Cool. When are you going to take your test?
I'm hoping to do it next month.
In April.
Yeah.
Super. Super.
So yeah, I'm trying to think what areas I struggled the most. I might need to go grab my
Okay.
real estate practice exam, but I was trying to find it on your site, but I can't find the PDF version that you have. Where is it?
What?
The
Dr.
PDF version of your practice test for the principles of real estate.
Ah.
Where is that? What is it under?
In the textbook or the,
There were, let me just see. Not in the textbook. Wasn't there? Oh, maybe it was inside the textbook. That's right. That's what I thought
Natalie,
it
do you have any questions? Or Lowell?
Nope, I don't have any questions right now.
Okay, thank you.
No, I don't have any questions right now. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So Michelle, we're back to you.
Sorry, I didn't realize other people had joined on. I wasn't paying attention. I'm sorry if I took over there.
No,
No, you are fine.
Um,
I'm gonna grab your notes and we can answer the questions that you had.
yep, I should have come with some questions. I didn't, so I can come
Okay.
again another time and come ask.
but I actually have a video. I think it's on rickroller.com, and if it's not, let me know and I'll send it to you. But it's how to choose your first broker, and
Okay.
it gives you ideas on what to ask about. And the most important thing about that I want you to think about when you're going in to interview with these brokers is they'll all hire you. I mean, there's rarely a broker that wouldn't hire you. I mean, they're not going to pay you anything. What risk are they taking? Other than their time. And so a lot of people go and think I'm interviewing for a job, and really the broker probably wants you more than you may or may not want to be there, and so it's like, what can you do for me to help me get going, to keep me out of trouble, and to help me navigate through these first few months of being in the real estate business, and not starve to death, so and they'll say, well, we have a great training program and it's like this and that. And I say, well, okay, how have others that have joined your firm, how have they done? Let's talk about the last three, and how long have they been here and how many deals have they done? Well, that has no bearing on how well you'll do because none of them have sold anything. Well, okay, then I'm not so sure about their training program. You know what I mean? But there is no lack of training in real estate these days. I mean, when I started back in '77, training sucked. It was horrible. But nowadays, I mean, it's all over the internet. I mean, you can go to YouTube and find 25 different guys that are telling you how to make money in real estate as an agent, not as an investor, but as an agent. And there's a lot of training out there, and a lot of it, a lot of it's good and a lot of it's old and doesn't pertain anymore, but a lot of it is great, much better than it ever used to be. But don't walk in there thinking I'm applying for a job. Yes, you are applying for a position, but they want you probably even more than, I mean, you could go to anywhere, and they would all hire you probably.
And what are your suggestions for how to generate leads and what you should do to help get you going to actually
the very first people that will always stand by you and be with you and help you are the people that already know and love you. So the very first people you should be marketing to are your very own sphere of influence, your own family, your own friends, coworkers from other jobs and whatnot. My first sale in this business was to my brother-in-law, Stephen. Bless his heart, he waited till I got a license. And then I got a license. Man, day one, he was in my car. We went out, we found a property. I wrote it up, and I took it back to my sales manager and he rewrote it. So I ran back, got Stephen to sign it, and then got it over to the other agent. We got it accepted. So, we sold my first house, my first week. And then I asked Stephen, I said, well, who do you know that, might also have a real estate need? He said, oh, well, there's this guy in my ward. And he was talking about saying, let's get him on the phone. He got him on the phone and, hey, I just bought a house. I'm so excited, blah, 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 you know, and this is Rick, and he's the agent that helped me. Are you thinking about selling your house? And the guy says, yeah, hand him the phone. I says, yeah, I'd love to come over and talk. Yeah, come on over tonight. I went over there and listed his house. So my first sale, my first listing, my first week was because of who?
Your sphere of influence.
Yes, Stephen, who loved me. You know, we're still good friends today, even though his sister traded me in on a new model, but we're still great friends, you know. And yeah. Dan, did I tell you I almost had a girlfriend that was a psychic? She could see the future.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Well, I almost had her as a girlfriend, but she dumped me before we met. Thank you for the smiles. No, it's you start with your own sphere of what?
Sorry, I do have a question.
Yes, thank you.
On the exam, is it something that we're going to have to know, like different sections of the real estate contract? Like in section 22, this is what that paragraph states, or do we just need to know?
They will give you a copy of a filled out REPSI.
Oh, okay, okay.
So it's like a crib sheet. Unfortunately, as you know, the test is time. It's time.
Okay.
So you only have so much time. And what happens is you spent so much time on the other questions. By the time you get to the REPSI, you better have a really good feel about where to find these answers. So a common one might be, is this included in the sale? Well, I know that's on the first page. And there's 6 pages, okay? Now, one nice thing about the REPSI, I think I had one laying around here earlier.
No, for you, you haven't got there yet. The REPSI chapter is the final Utah chapter, so you'll see that a little later.
But each section in that contract has a bolded set of
Header.
words that header that tells you what's in that section. So you can flip through, but there's like 25 sections too. So what I would suggest you do is you briefly go over it, but before you walk into that exam, please, I want every one of you to read that REPSI at least 3 times so that you kind of are familiar. Like, you know, on the last page is when all the deadline dates are. You know, on the first page is where you find the buyer's name and how much earnest money they're putting down, and you know, and other financial terms and what's included and what's not included. And you know that, you know, and you have a general feeling for how the contingencies work. You know, as long as you cancel before the deadline, you can cancel for these reasons, you know, and that kind of thing. You have to be familiar with it. That's all. You don't have to have it memorized. Oh my gosh, that'd be horrible.
Well, because some of the questions, you know, the practice questions are like, which section has this information? I'm like, oh my goodness, am I going to have to memorize this thing to take my test? Okay.
No, you know, you're given this sheet. The other thing you're given is a copy of a settlement sheet. And they'll ask you, you know, I mean, was there a home warranty included and who paid for it? You know, and you'll find that, you know, and was there additional earnest money after a certain date? You'll know where that's back on the 3rd page. And so, you know, I mean, if you read it a few times, if you have questions about it, you know, you can ask us. We're happy to talk you through it, but it's fairly okay. You know, it's just that, and a lot of the paragraphs don't have anything that can be changed. So if you read it and you understand that, oh, okay, that works this way. And some of them, well, you shall mediate or you may mediate. You know, you need to know the difference there, but that's the only thing you can check on that whole paragraph.
Okay.
You know, so
how much time are you given for the exam?
Pardon?
How much time do you have for the exam?
Dan?
For the general part, you have 4 hours total. For the general part, it's 2.5 hours. And for the Utah part, it's 1.5 hours.
And 80 questions for the general and
50 for Utah.
50 for Utah.
There might be a few extras in there. So like it might be 90 questions in the general, but a part of those, there's going to be 10 questions that you're not graded on, but they're mixed in. But I just bring that up to say, if you're counting questions, it might not be exactly 80. So, so if you're counting your time and the time you're spending, just keep in mind there might be a few extras.
And how often do they offer the tests? They're all in person, right? You go to a testing place to take the test?
Yeah, they're
Yes.
all in person. They offer testing times all the time, but they do them at the Pearson View Test Center, which serves several industries. And so it just depends on their availability. So they're doing tests all day, Monday through Saturday, but you have to find an opening where there's a spot that you can sign up for.
Okay.
Yeah, there's people testing for their airplane license, and there's people testing for their nursing license. You know, so it's other things.
If you did need to schedule sooner than later, sometimes they're a few weeks backed up, so you have to schedule a couple weeks in advance. But if you check back each day, sometimes they'll have cancellations and a new slot will open up within a few days that you could take if you were ready.
And you can't take the test until after you've finished the course. Is that correct?
That's right.
Yeah, not just, yeah,
I mean,
and
you can't
finishing
sign
the
up,
course
sorry, sign up
also,
to take the test.
right, and finishing the course also includes passing our school exam.
Right.
So you can, I have heard of students scheduling the exam before they finish the course. And I
So you
think
can.
it is they put in the date that they were expecting to finish the course, because that's what they ask is when did you finish the course? And they say, well, I will finish on this date. And so then it lets them schedule on a date after that.
I went there and it asked for your like confirmation ID from your school. So I wasn't sure.
So there is a school code, and I think you can just pick it out of the drop down, but our school code is just 4440.
Okay.
But the last time I looked at it, it had that in a drop down where you just selected which school you went to. So I had the school title as well.
Got it.
But that should let you schedule your exam.
I like deadlines to work towards.
Yes. And if they are backed up 2 weeks, it's nice to schedule it now for 2 weeks from now if you're going to finish this week.
Yeah. Okay.
Good advice, Dan. Thank you. Any other questions, folks? Do all of you have my Quizlet program that helps you with vocabulary? Go to rickroller.com and you can download it. There is a password. The password is limitless agent. Limitless agent. It's free. It's just there to help you. And I would recommend that you use the flashcard part of it. You know, there are some games like Hangman and some, you know, that you can play. But the thing I think it would be most helpful is to use the flashcard, and you can go from definitions to word, or you can go from the word to definitions. So you can go back and forth, and there's even a button you can push where there's a voiceover. There's a little a lady that talks to you. You know, she reads you the questions if you want to study it that way. But a large part of passing this vocabulary is this test is knowing the vocabulary. I mean, we saw that tonight. You know, a lot of these questions were just definitional. You know, I mean, what is the, you know, what do we call the part of the lot that faces the street? Well, that's just a definitional thing. It's the frontage or the front foot, you know. So you got to know the vocab. There's about 400 words, and you know, there's just not a lot of normal conversation where you talk about hypothecation. You know, putting your house up as collateral for a loan. I mean, it's just, there's just a lot of words that if you didn't know them, you don't know them, you know, because you don't ever use them. Right? Right. Okay, other questions tonight? Man, thanks for tuning in. My personal cell phone number is 801-556-8000. That's 801-556-8000. Operators are standing by. That's my cell phone, and if I'm not answering it, it means I'm not available. I had a call a moment ago from a buyer. It's closing tomorrow. I'll get back to him in a minute. Hope he's not getting cold feet. I doubt it. Okay, any other questions?
Thank you.
Oh, thank you. It's been a pleasure. And guys, you can do this. You know, you can do this. The market is really interesting right now. I mean, anything you throw on the MLS will sell. just the way it is. And it will probably sell for more than it's listed. And it's certainly selling for more than what it's worth. But what are things worth? I don't know. Our dollar gets worth less and less, and therefore real estate goes up, but it's really not real estate going up, it's a dollar going down in purchasing value. That's part of it, but not all of it. But but if you work your sphere of influence, you've got a much better chance of getting listings. You're looking for people that you know that want to sell their house. I went to a funeral Sunday and I asked, the heirs, or what are you going to do with the house? And I said, oh, we're going to sell it. Oh, interesting. I need to come talk to you. Not today, but when you're ready. Yeah, we got to declutter. We got to do this or that. And let me do some preliminary work and figure out what it might sell for in this market. Oh yeah, we went on Zillow. Zillow is the most inaccurate place to find out what things might be worth. And it's sad, but our state is what we call a non-disclosure state, which means that we don't require a mechanism or a sales price to be put on a deed. Many states, like our neighbor to the east, Colorado, where I started, had what they called a documentary fee. And there was a formula, it's a $1 for every, $1,000 or whatever. So if a guy paid, $50 in doc fee, you knew the house sold for $500,000, or if it was $58, then you knew it sold for $580,000, okay? Because it was stamped right on the deed. The deeds normally say $10 and other good and valuable consideration. But in our state, we're a non-disclosure state, which means that the deeds have been recorded. It was $10 and other good and valuable consideration. But the poor county assessor, there's no way for them to figure out what it sold for unless he can get into the MLS or call the agent or whatever, And so Zillow relies heavily on those states that are full disclosure states. That's the only way they know what things are selling for. Okay. And so that when they don't have that definitive information, it also makes their conclusions somewhat inaccurate. So for those of us that are professionals in the industry, and we have access to the solds and all the sold information of the MLS, it's much easier for us to come up with a truer value of what it might be selling for. Okay. So I didn't explain all this to him at the family dinner after the funeral last night, but I will when I come in with my report and sit down with them and say, here's all this. Now, it's easier to work your relatives, but unfortunately, I have coached agents, I've worked with agents, and it's been a really sad state of affairs when I say, okay, how large is your sphere of influence? Oh, I haven't put that together yet. And they're 2 years into the business. And at any one moment in time, there's about 17% of the people in our area, they're thinking about buying or selling a house, okay? Just 17%. That means 83% of the people don't really want to talk to you, okay? But on the other hand, if you're their friends, if they're your family, and you are keeping them informed of what you're doing in real estate, and you're sending them all kinds of interesting information and whatnot, they love you. Who else are going to list with, Oh, I wanted to prove myself before I went back to my cousin Bob because I talked him into this MLM thing a few years ago and it didn't work out, Well, you know what? They love you anyway, maybe. I hope so. And just market to them. Guys, they want to help you. Okay. Remember that story about Steven now. My first listing, my first sell, my first week. Boy, that got the attention of my sales manager. Then also helped me, get to a great start. So I was Rookie of the Year on that board. But you can do that too. There's nothing special about me. I was just hungry and worked hard. But I'm happy to help any way that I can, and so is Dan. Both of us have a lot of experience in the industry. It's, of course, Dan's a baby, but I'm 44 years into this, so guys, you can do this. You can do this. But I would admonish you, if you can, to work on listings rather than buyers, because buyers are, you know, they're, well, I wrote up an offer for my granddaughter a few weeks ago. Some of you have already heard this, but she didn't get the house. There were 14 offers, you know, and so you may have to show a number of homes, write a number of offers until you get one under contract. And I have agents complain to me all the time, oh man, this is so hard. I have to write up like 6, 7 offers in order to get one under contract. And I says, yeah, but all these people, you know, one agent said it was 16 offers they wrote. I said, but on every one of those 16 properties you wrote an offer, there's someone that got a commission on every dang one of them. And who was that? The listing agent, right? So you're sitting there, 16 offers come in, you know, hey, who wins? Always who wins? The person that controls the property, the listing agent. So you could buy them, you could fix them up and be a flipper type person. You could develop them, build them, but all that takes a lot of money. I mean, you can just get a real estate license and list them, you know, with a little, you know, shoe leather and chutzpah, you get the listing and then you're locked in. Okay. So I'd much rather have 5 listings and 5 buyers. You do the math. Wouldn't it be great to have a listing, you throw it out on the MLS and all of a sudden 4,000 agents are fighting to buy it? So anyway, bless you all. It's you can do this, and you will be in a situation where you can really, really, truly help people and make a difference in their lives, and you'll benefit along the way too. Thanks for being with us tonight. Please call if we can be of any help, and we'll see you out there.